going live right now.
We can still hear it, Matt. Do you have a
Oh,
ringer
we're
on
live.
somewhere?
Do you have a what?
Like, is your phone ringer on somewhere?
No, it's on Do Not Disturb. Everything's on Do Not Disturb. One more message.
Try the silent. Try the silent mode.
Yeah, it's always on silent. It's on silent. One more time, then. I don't see how you could hear that.
What we do.
Maybe your microphone is too powerful.
Yeah, you didn't hear that then, right?
No.
No.
I couldn't even hear it, so.
Okay, they were probably good.
Oh, those messages extremely offensive. Unbelievable. Okay, so should we all start recording then?
Yes.
Yes.
Time go. Okay.
Okay.
Wait.
I'm recording here.
Okay.
Recording on Zoom.
Oh man, I
Okay.
think I screwed that up. New. What color is it when it's recording? It's
Usually red.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'll have a.
I don't know what program you're using, but red usually feels like the right.
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Red seems good.
Audio
Yeah.
hijack. I can't remember what it looks
It's
like.
weird. In this case, red is awesome.
It's the backwards of everything else. Oh wait, now I'm hearing myself. I'm getting my own echo. You guys, are you hearing it?
Oh,
No, you sound good here.
No.
You might need to do a. It's like a mix minus basically. In audio hijack, I think you can like click a down arrow and like turn off one channel or something. I can't remember how to do it in audio hijack, especially, but you can usually. Or there might be like a monitor on. It depends on how you have it set up. It's very versatile.
I think it's working now. Let me
Okay.
stop the recording and listen back to it to make sure, but I think that's right.
good idea.
Better safe than sorry, as they say.
I think we should just switch back to analog tape. We get all that lovely warmth in the low end. You know, that nice
Vintage
mild
warmth.
compression up at the top. It'd be vintage. It'd be sweet.
And they should distribute Go Time on vinyl.
Yes.
Wow.
You have to subscribe and you get it in the.
We could
Okay,
do
well.
a go time for record store day. That like on
So,
vinyl or something. That would be really cool.
When I worked for the Baltimore Sun, I heard that there was a fan of one of the Sun's podcasts who was extremely rich. And so what he did is he had his, butler or whatever burn the podcast to a CD every week and put that CD into the Mercedes. And so that way he never had to learn how to use an app or a podcast or whatever. Just it's in the
One
car,
can
it's
wish.
there. Yeah, so that's what you
Brilliant.
need is a personal podcast butler to do
But
all
hey,
this
yeah,
stuff for you.
If any of our Go Time fans think it'd be cool to have a vinyl recording for Record Store Day of one of the Go Time episodes, drop us a message in the Slack, ping us on the Go Time Twitter, and let us know how Go Time can spend their money on printing a vinyl copy of one of our episodes for you to buy. Probably for charity, too.
Great
Yes.
idea.
The people fund.
Yeah.
Let me get
Money
more
for
water
people.
in my cup and then we'll
Money
start.
for people. How very Costanza of you. That would be really cool, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
We could just do get a special edition of all of Matt's outtakes, and just burn that into.
Oh, no, I think, Matt, we would have to do something really special and unique just for the vinyl recording. That's only available on the vinyl.
Yeah.
So that you'd obviously there'd be a reason to collect it or get it or yeah, but it'd be available only on vinyl. Special edition of Go Time.
And we would only sell it to that billionaire who has the Wu-Tang album. Isn't he in jail now?
Oh, really? I don't know.
What for that?
Well, I think it was
For buying a
something
Wu-Tang
else,
album.
But
For
It didn't
spending
help.
obscene amounts of money on one record.
yeah, I think it didn't help his case in front of the jury.
I do want to hear the record. I'm not going to lie to you. I'd love to hear it. But don't we have a show to do?
We sure do. If everyone's recording locally, we're going to do a sync clap where we'll just I'll count down. I'll do 3, 2, 1, and then we clap after the 1. And we'll all clap at the same time, and that helps the editor sync it up. So 3, 2, 1. Yep. and that sounded like chaos to us, but apparently that's really good for the editing. Okay, so I suppose we'll have the theme music and then we'll get into it.
Okay, let me stop my video. And you can hide non-video participants if you don't want to see my mug the entire time.
We're also streaming on YouTube, by the way, everybody.
We are live on YouTube. Hello, YouTube people. If you're on YouTube wondering, why can I not chat? I like to chat during the live streams. That's because the chat goes on in the Go Time FM channel of Gophers Slack. So we like to keep it all in one place, and that's where it's happening. So if you're on YouTube watching, you can get a Slack invite on the Gophers Slack. I don't know how you do it, but I think there's like gophers.slack.invite. I don't know. Google it. You'll find it, and then hop in there and chat with us there. So we just keep the YouTube chat off for that reason. Everybody in the Gopher Slack, hi. Here we go. I'm going to play the song. I'm going to mute myself, and I'll be back at the end of the show, guys. Have fun.
Thanks. We will.
Here we go.
Let's do it. It's go time.
Hello and welcome to Go Time. I'm Matt Ryer, and I think you should be able to paste without formatting by default. I don't think I should have to contort my hand into some kind of copy and paste claw in order to get the text not matching the source formatting. I've never wanted it.
I believe that same key gesture is actually the Emacs one for save.
Oh, well then, that's just a disaster waiting to happen, isn't it? Luckily, I use VS Code. Well, that voice you heard preemptively before his introduction, which is strictly against the rules, but there we go. I'll give you a sense of the man. Oh, hi, Mark. It's Mark Bates.
Hey, everyone. Back. The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah. Well, you're a man, aren't you? Definitely. 1 out of 3.
No, I'm definitely a myth, actually.
Oh, yeah?
I'm all myth. Just all myth.
Well, hopefully we have some real people here too. Let's meet them. We're joined by Wayne. And I'm just going to say your full name and then we'll edit that as if I didn't make a mistake. We're joined by Wayne Ashley Berry. Wayne is a principal engineer at GoDaddy. And Wayne, you're an artist, right? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. A long-time listener and very excited to be on the show.
You're very welcome. What sort of art do you do?
I started drawing and then I got into computer graphics and it was all downhill from there. And that's actually what got me into programming in the first place. So That's why I'm here.
Very cool. Well, hopefully we'll get to see some of that, not on a podcast, obviously, but maybe we'll share your Twitter handle in the show notes. We're also joined by Carl Johnson. Carl is a software engineer with a PhD in philosophy and is the director of technology for Spotlight PA. Is that right, Carl? Welcome to the show.
That's right. Hi. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming. Today, we're talking about Go Embed. This is a new thing that came in Go 1.16, and it lets you put files inside the binary. But why would you want to do such a thing? Tell us, somebody.
Why wouldn't you want to do such a thing?
Why is it useful then?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. We've been doing it for years in a variety of ways. So it's really nice that we finally had this. This problem of wanting to do this, and I'll get to why we want to do it, has been here since the very beginning. So this is my little preamble to say I'm super excited for this release, and I'm super excited for embedding. Because why do we want to do it? We want to do it for so many different reasons, right? The one that everybody usually talks about is web apps. We want to build web apps. What do web apps have? They have images, they have style sheets, they have JS, they have templates, right? And wouldn't it be nice if all of that was self-contained and we didn't have to have all those files on disk and didn't have to manage that problem? And that's one of the reasons why, right? That's kind of the use case scenario. And when I first started doing Buffalo way back, I talked about how it was extracted from a real project. And embedding those files into that binary was part of that original project because they needed to be able to ship one binary that had everything. And so, like I said, this is a problem we've had as a community. And this goes any kind of application, but the canonical one is the web.
Yeah, so that's the point then. You get to put files that otherwise you have to corral and manage and remember to deploy alongside the binary. You get to put them inside the binary. Is it just for deployment? It makes deployment easier? Is that really the main reason why you do it?
I mean, that's certainly the biggest reason, right? Because, again, over the years, we've had different solutions that have made the problem either kind of cumbersome or transparent. Some required you had to always compile in, and now that's a cumbersome thing, and that's not, you're doing that because you need that advantage of probably deployment. Thankfully, the new solution, like a lot of the other ones, is transparent. So yeah, you want to be able to deploy, having that easy to ship binary, and whether it be to your web service or to your customers, like you can just package one thing. It has all your migration files, like just everything nice and tightly packed. It's just simpler and cleaner. It's just one thing.
Well, another example is the Hugo static site generator, which was created by Steve Francia. That has internal templates. So it's a tool for creating your own website, and you give it your templates and tell it how to make your website. But it also has some internal templates. And right now, if you look at the source code for it, they have like the HTML files in one part, and then they have a Go file that is essentially the exact same file, and it has like a comment at the top saying auto-generated, do not edit. And they just have to keep them in sync, that whenever the internal file changes, they change the Go file to match it.
So they probably have some kind of script or something that does that.
Yeah, they have a Go generate script that does that. So that's an example where the Hugo binary is just one file. It's just a single executable. You can get it for Mac or Windows or Linux, and it has everything it needs in it. And so then that means that they have to go through this kind of annoying build process where they take these templates that they want to ship with it and turn them into Go code so that they can put it into the binary.
Yeah, Buffalo, same thing, right? Anything that generates your code, that does like code generation, has their own templates that they need to ship, and it's a real pain. But that problem you were just talking about, keeping those Go files in sync, was such a pain. Because, if you think about it, the only way you can get those files in is you have to create Go files. And so you need to either keep those Go files constantly in sync, like you said, on disk, so that if somebody does a Go get, they're going to get the embedded files. Or you have to set up the expectation that if you want the embedded files, you have to run this build script to get those files. And that was a real pain too. In this new system, you don't have that. It's just like Go modules, much more streamlined.
So Wayne, have you used other solutions to solve this problem before?
Packer and Packager as well.
Never heard of those. What?
I've heard of those too, yeah.
I think someone on this call might have heard of them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the maintainer's happy that this is 1.16 has come out and doesn't have to maintain any of that anymore.
Well, that's true though, because you really don't now have to build any more of these things again, Mark, right?
Yeah, and it's not just me. I mean, like I said, this is a problem the community has been facing for years. Go bin data, static, Go rice. The lists go on and on and on. And those are just the ones like that we kind of know about. There have been so many over the years, and then I'm sure people have written their own.
I definitely have. I've done it where I just needed an HTML file, and I start with just having a const in the Go code,
right?
But then you don't get any help with the IDE or anything. So then I had a separate HTML file, and then the little build script. I couldn't just do Go build. I'd have to then run some other things first that would do basically that thing that we talked about that Hugo was doing. But with Go embed, you can just use the normal build toolchain, right?
Yeah, there's a saying in architecture that you should pave the grass. I don't know, maybe somebody knows the saying better. But the idea is, right, if you have a campus of some sort, like a college campus or whatever, and you have different buildings, and you're thinking about where should I put the sidewalks for it? Well, one way to do it is you just sort of guess. I guess people are going to want to go from building 1 to building 3 a lot, so let's build a sidewalk there. But another way to do it is you just put out a big grassy field and you leave that for a year, and then you come back and you see, oh, well, people are always walking from building 3 to building 4, and I can see that because the grass is completely worn over, and I'm going to turn that into the sidewalk. And I think the Go team has been really good about paving the grass, like paving, I don't know how to say this, but paving the areas that people are actually using, paving the footpaths, is that the phrase for it? Because they look at what are the real problems that Gophers are having, and then they try to make it so that the Go tool can solve those problems. So we mentioned modules before. That was a real problem people were having of like, how do we incorporate open source software into our programs, into a way where we know what version we're getting in and what versions are coming out, and all that works. And so this is another one where people have been doing lots and lots of tools over the years, including Packer and Gobin data and static and blah, blah, blah. The list goes on. And now we have it built into the Go tool. And so I think for those of us who have been using those tools, it's very exciting to see it built in.
Yeah, I think for me, this reminds me of when I started using Go, and you get this promise of a single tool chain. There's a built-in command for compiling, for testing. You get that single static binary that I've actually sent some binaries to people over Slack before. It's quite useful. And for a while, you sorry, Matt?
Email, you just embed the message in a binary.
Exactly. And now it's kind of, you start using Go and then you realize, oh, I actually need these HTML files, I need these CSS files, and you start to lose sight of that simple deployment mechanism. And now we're back at that place where you don't need to figure out which tool do I need to use to embed files. Everyone can use the same tool. You can have standards across projects, and it's that true kind of original promise of Go that everyone's got these same tools that just work.
That's great. What about secrets? Should you use Go embed for embedding secret things in binaries, or do you have to just assume that people are going to be able to still see that content?
I think you always have to assume that people can see everything.
Yeah, if you're doing it as like just I want to send this off to my server, I suppose it would be fine, as long as you keep the binary secret. But if you're shipping it out to clients could easily decompile the binary and remove the secret and spread it on the dark web. So it's probably not a good use case for that. It just depends on exactly what the nature of the secret is.
Yeah. I mean, one use case that you could use it for, kind of a secret thing, is maybe an application that has the license built in for a particular client. Right, where the worst thing that they're going to do is deconstruct the license, but pull it out, but it's going to be hitting a license server anyway. So if they mess with it, it's just going to break their binary.
Yeah.
So that's similar one kind of a thing. You can have the Go tags that build the binary to that client's license model as well, right?
Yeah, a similar issue that I've run into is trying to include the build version in a binary. So there are a couple different ways that you can do that. One way is if you use the Go linker, if you send a certain command to it, you can say, here's a string variable in my binary, replace it with this. And so you can write a little script that says, when you build my binary, replace version string with the git hash that I want to have in there. The problem with that is that now you're really dependent on this script for anything to build your project. Otherwise, they just get like a blank string there. So another way that you could do this with Go embed is you could have the git hash written out to a simple text file called version.txt. And it could either be like a human-friendly text, a human-friendly version like 1.2.3, or it could be a git hash or whatever you need. And then you can embed that in your binary. And when you're shipping it out and the client says, it's not working for me, you can say, well, run command-v and let me know what the version is. And then I'll tell you why it's not working.
So Go embed works by putting files in. You can't, like with Go generate, run, execute executable. You can't
No. No, but to Carl, what Carl was just saying, one of the things about Go Embed, and we haven't really talked too much about how it works, but it has basically two concepts. You can have a file system, which, as you can imagine, is a collection of files. And then you can also embed stuff directly to a string or a slice of bytes.
Ooh, so that's
So to Carl's example, you could have a version string just like you do now, but you can use Go Embed to embed the version number into that string or slice of bytes directly.
yeah, I guess you'd still need to run a script before to prepare that other file, but it saves you from messing around with those fiddly flags, the linter flags or the linker flags that you have to pass in.
Yeah, and the nice thing there is that you'll get a compiler error if the file that you expect isn't there, as opposed to, you know, LD flags or some other hacky solution where sometimes you just get a silent error and then you've shipped a binary with no version information in it at all.
Yeah, that is very cool. Someone needs to write a blog post about the modern way of solving that problem. I do it every time. I do it using those LD flags.
That's how I've been doing it for years.
Yeah, same.
I read my own blog post. I have to Google myself and then find my blog post that says what the LD flags are and look them up and just copy paste and hope that I got it right when I wrote it.
Oh, I think everybody copies and pastes. We all have one that we wrote somewhere. We just copy and paste it around.
We've actually got an internal command that generates the parameters for that flag. So you just pipe the output from that command into the Go build.
Yeah, I see. This is great. We have all these old solutions, hacky solutions we could start getting rid of now.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe we could explore a little bit more then about how Go Embed works. It's a kind of special comment, isn't it? And this is unusual in Go. It's one of the unusual things, I think, of the design, where specific comments have special meaning. Go generates another one, and there are build tags. But how does it work? How would you use Go Embed if you wanted to bring in a file into a string?
It's actually quite pleasant and easy, fairly straightforward to use. I obviously hesitate. I never want to say the word easy or simple because it's never that. Matter of fact, I struggled with trying to figure out how to embed files by an extension, and I'll say that in a minute. So basically what you do is you set up the variable you want to embed into, whether it's a string, a slice of bytes, or an embed.fs variable. Those are your kind of three choices. Somebody please stop me if I forgot one, but I'm pretty sure those are your three choices that you can put this directive above. So you get your little go embed directive, and then you tell it what kind of files you want. And those files, and this is, as somebody who's written these systems, this is what I love. Those files that you're asking for are relative to the source code. So there's this kind of consistency to it. If I'm in cmd/foo/main.go and I reference templates/css, it's going to expect templates to be right next to main.go and so on, right? And that sort of resolution can be really tricky to do if you don't have the Go tooling behind you. Like if you're not in the Go tooling, if you have to do it all aftermarket, because those are kind of problems you do. And it works for, like I said, all three of those. And you can do, I want templates, so I can do templates/star. So there's a wild card you can use, and you can also use, star.css, for example. The struggle I came into was I had assets/css/ and then a bunch of CSS files, and I just did, for my embed directive, assets/star.css. So it was only looking in the one directory, so I needed another star, another slash to kind of recurse through all of them. But once I figured that out, it was great.
The gotcha there is that Go has a built-in pattern matching. It's in filepath.match, and it kind of stinks, to be honest. It's not, it's fine for what it is, but it's purposefully very simple in the way that a lot of Go tools are. And so it doesn't support ***. So if you're familiar with a lot of the JavaScript asset building tools, they'll have, */star.css will mean any CSS file anywhere underneath this particular path. And the Go file path matcher does not have that. It only supports a single star in a particular location. So if you say go embed assets /star.css, it'll get any CSS files you have that are in the assets folder, but not in the CSS folder that's underneath assets. So it's a little bit of a gotcha.
Well, like I said, you could do that star. You could do an intermediate star, just the one star, and then it'll do all folders. And then,
even no matter how deep they are.
I don't know about that.
Well, here's the thing, though. In a way, it's better that it's just really clear and obvious. And if you want to embed more things, you have different. You know what I mean? It's almost like it would be hard to find what you were looking for potentially if you had lots of CSS files in a big directory structure with CSS files, say they're named the same, separated only by path, which happens if you've got theming and things sometimes.
The thing for me, I was like actually I had like nested JS files. I had a vendor directory, and trying to find the files in the vendor directory. That's where I kind of ran into that problem. But it was such a simple thing. I said, it is very basic. It is very simple. But what I was amazed at is my editor, I use NeoVim with VimGo. And I get go vet warnings if my pattern is wrong, if the files don't exist.
Ooh.
Nice.
So right there in my editor, I was getting a nice little warning saying, oh, that pattern doesn't work. You're not.
Nice. And it would be a build error too, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yep.
Yeah. See that
Actually, I forgot that you can also specify multiple directories and multiple patterns if you're embedding into a file system. So my first take at this, I would have, var CSS and embed the CSS directory in there, and then var images and put images in there. But then you can actually just have var static and just embed everything in there. You just need to remember that they still exist in their directories. So you need to reference html/index.html.
Yeah. So that's actually a really good way to do it. So if you have var static or var fs, and then you say in the go embed comment above it, go embed assets /css/star.css space assets /js/star.js and then images and so forth. And you can put it all into a single file system that way.
That's cool.
Yeah, and you can also, if that line starts getting too long because it's just space separated, you can use multiple lines. So you can have multiple go embed directives above the variable declaration. So you could do it really nice and, one's kind of line if you've got maybe 2 things, 3 things. But after that, you can put a nice, even ordered list, or, you can sort it and just make it all look nice, right? So that's really nice too. So you can build up your static very deliberately.
So if you're just in a hurry, if you just do go embed assets, it will embed almost everything in the assets recursively. The things that it doesn't embed are dot files, so files that begin with dot, which you would kind of expect. It also doesn't embed files that begin with underscore. And the logic behind this is that Go will not compile files that begin with underscore. So if you have underscore myfile.go, it will just be ignored by the Go compiler. I think that's a little bit weird, to be honest, the logic behind it. But if you find that that's the problem, if you explicitly name your underscore files, or if you say assets/_star, that's a way of working around that.
Yeah, and that pattern of using underscore file names is very common in the Ruby on Rails world.
Yes.
For doing partials. So anybody who's kind of brought that theory over, that's a great little gotcha. I didn't know that. Well, I didn't make that connection that it would do something like that, like throw away an HTML file that began with an underscore.
If you say templates/star.html, it will include the underscore files. But if you just say templates, if you just say embed templates, and you think, okay, now it's going to embed everything in templates and all of the subdirectories of templates. fortunately, it's the kind of error that you'll notice as soon as you try to use the partial and it's not there.
Yeah. Oh, this is actually a really great segue to the tooling. You can actually, the Go tooling will tell you what it expects to embed in your code. So if you run go list -json, it's going to spit out kind of a JSON kind of build, some basic kind of module and package information, and in that it's going to be all the files it's going to embed. So if
wasn't
you
there
know,
a similar command in Packager where you could also run packager list and then see? Yeah, and I use that all the time because sometimes files would just disappear, and in your CI you need to see what's actually going on.
So that's a really nice way, and you can obviously you could test against that if you wanted to, but then you start testing against the language too, I think. But the tooling has shows you that information. So if you are like, what is happening, what is actually being put in here, you don't have to go digging through debug logs. You can just quickly run go list -json. Those are the 6 files it's embedding. I thought it was supposed to be embedding 106 files. My pattern's wrong. I'm missing a whole folder of stuff, right? So it helps you immediately jump back to where that problem is.
It is interesting how in Go, generally, it's a very simple language. There's very little magic. But then sometimes you get these opinions baked in to the language. So, automatically excluding files starting with an underscore. If you don't know about that, then it's not very clear. And it seems feels a bit more like a framework than a language sometimes, because the Go authors have taken opinions. And generally, I find it's best to just lean into them and enjoy them. And it just keeps everything nice and simple and clear. But you do need to figure out what those opinions are.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah.
Polite, wasn't it? Well, here's one. And we're not at the unpopular opinions section yet. But if you thought that the comments to magic comments in Go was weird, what's going on with this underscore import for embed? You have to import underscore embed.
So the reasoning behind this...
Yeah, go on, Carl.
The reasoning behind this is that they don't want somebody who's using Go 115 or below to accidentally try to build something that requires an embed, and it looks like it works, and then you go to run it, and it doesn't actually work. And so to get around this, they require you to import the embed package anytime you use an embed. But if you're just putting if you're just embedding a file as a string or embedding a file as a slice of bytes, you don't actually use the embed package. So to get around this, you do import underscore embed, and that tells it, okay, I'm using the embed feature in this file, so make sure that it's available. But it's another one of those things where if you don't understand why it's there, it just sort of looks bizarre. Like, I have to include this import that doesn't do anything for no reason.
Well, we
but
do
there is
that.
a reason.
We do that already in several places in Go. The registration of a database package is kind of a great example of that, where they're doing it for the side effect. Now, we could argue whether they should be doing it for the side effect or not. I've got my opinions, but the side effect is it gets registered to a global map when that happens, right? That driver. So there is precedent in the standard library for that type of technique. Doesn't necessarily mean I like it.
I've been more strict than that, though, because with the database example, you only have to import it in your package main or import it one place in your entire program. Right. But with this, every time you embed into a particular string or slice of bytes, you have to make sure that the import of embed is there, or else it will say, you didn't import embed.
Mm-hmm. See, that doesn't bother me too much, because as somebody who's, again, written these types of tools, I also look at that as a marker. Like, before I go and start parsing this whole Go file, are they even using the package? If they're not using embed, why should I bother to parse this? So that, to me, that is less egregious than say the registration of a database driver.
I tend to put all of my embedded resources in a single file. So top level, I have a resources directory, resources.go, and that's the only place I'll embed anything. And then all other packages can import from there. They don't need to know about embeds at all. But it is one area where I hope that the tooling can maybe get a little bit better, because, if VS Code or Vim or NeoVim could detect you're using 1.16, you have a Go embed directive in your code, it could just import that for you, as opposed to not.
I'm sure Go imports will be updated with that functionality eventually if it hasn't been already.
Yeah.
I once put that to Brad Fitzpatrick about whether those just importing a package and relying on the side effect of doing that, whether in retrospect he'd change that. And he looked at me in a way that said, yeah, you are the best. So, and that's
I think he had just had some bad lunch, if I remember correctly. We had gone out to that really dodgy place.
Delicious.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. Okay. So just a quick question, then I'll put this to all three of you. What's the best thing you've ever embedded? Mark, well, you can go first. Don't laugh away from the mic. We need that.
The best thing I've ever embedded is an ASCII image of Jim Wyrick.
Oh, what a great answer.
Thank you.
Can anyone beat that as an answer?
I have a similar answer, but I embedded an image of Pikachu in a test because we had an algorithm that was detecting prominent colors from images. So I embedded Pikachu in my test so that I could run that through my code.
That's actually a great one.
So Matt, you said at the top that I have a PhD in philosophy. It doesn't come up in my job very often, but it does for this, which is that I embedded a quine. So a quine is a kind of computer science joke named for W.V.O. Quine, who was a philosopher very active in the 60s. And it's a thing in computer science where you make a program that embeds itself, that can print itself out. And so if you want to make a program that can print itself out, all you have to do is say, go embed the name of your file.go, and then print out the embed. So it's a recursive, it's embedding itself.
That is amazing. That is very meta. And I feel like is the start of how Terminator happens. Like
yes,
like
it
that.
embedded itself, and then it just grew too complicated.
Yes, Go embed is how Skynet starts.
Yeah.
Not the Amazon flying drones or any of that stuff, but this is it. Russ Cox has started Skynet off with the Go embed. Thanks, Russ.
It actually reminds me, there's a, was it Russ Cox who did the draft design presentation on YouTube of Go Embed? This was June last year.
I believe so, yeah.
And one of the first things that he did was embed a file, but within a function. And it's funny because that was the first thing I tried to do when 1.16 came out, but you actually can't.
Yeah.
You have to embed at a package level variable, which I don't know how I feel about, to be honest.
Yeah, interesting, because a lot of us try and avoid global state altogether. But in a way, is it okay that this breaks that rule?
So the original, the very kind of earliest drafts of the proposal, I think even the ones before kind of they went out to the public kind of thing, circulated around through some of us who had written these kind of packages. And that was one of my first comments, was why can't I do it at the function level? And I think people are really going to want that, and it's definitely going to come up. People don't like globals, yada, yada, yada. And I don't remember quite what Russ's exact issues were or problems with it, but he did make very valid points as to both the technical issues around trying to make it work, and also the practicality of why you would really want that kind of a feature for something that is essentially a global pool, just like your file system, right? Your file system is this globally accessible pool. Right. So you don't have a separate globally accessible, a separate only pool within this function that doesn't even make sense conceptually. So there was he had a lot of interesting takes on it.
There is
If you get the earliest beta of Go 116, it actually did let you do embeds at the function level. But then the problem that people found as they were using it was that if you embedded a slice of bytes, someone could mutate that slice of bytes. And it wasn't clear what that should do. So if I have a particular function, let's say that it embeds a file as a slice of bytes, and then someone changes the file, what does that mean? What are the semantics of that? Should that cause a crash? Should that be legal? Should it be the same when you rerun the function? It was too confusing. And so then they decided, let's make it so that you can only do embedding at the top level. Logically speaking, that's the only level where it really makes sense to have embedding. And so because that was the decision, they ended up dropping the feature of letting you do it in the function, which is kind of inconvenient, but it goes back to that idea of the Go authors. They have very kind of strong opinions. It's like not magical, it's simple, but at the same time, the opinions are very strong. And so the opinion is, if you really need it, you can deal with it being a global and just don't use it wrong.
You can still change those. It's a variable in global space, right?
You can change. So in the case of embeds, the FS, you can swap out. You can swap out one FS for another FS, but the FSs themselves are read-only. They're thread safe, so they're meant to be used globally, and they're also read-only. So you can't kind of mutate them unless unless you swap out an entire whole new FS.
Gotcha.
So Matt, the issue I think you're talking about is that if you have the slice of bytes, and it's at the top level, you could of course change it, but if it was in a function, you could change it and then you would rerun the function. And should you get a fresh copy that was the original, or should you get back the embedded one that just got changed? And so that was like, if you're used to C or C-based languages, they have a concept of a static variable where every time you run it, it's the same variable. And if you change it, it's the same between runs. But there's no such concept in Go. So they would have had to basically invent it for it to make sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. And I'm kind of with you on this. I don't mind these restrictions, and it's about really learning the right ways to do things. You can always pass arguments around. You could always pass a global into some other type or something else if that's what you want to do.
And that is what is encouraged, by the way. You're encouraged to write your functions to take an fs.fs interface.
But then you can do that for testing quite easily.
And then you can do that for testing. Like you'd have a global CSS folder, let's say, but your function just takes an fs.fs type. So you could pass in that CSS folder, or you can use the mapfs that's in the testing package for, kind of creating your own fictitious file system for testing and just pass that in. Or you can write your own interfaces around all of this. You can fulfill your own interface, those interfaces, and do all sorts of wonderful, interesting stuff in the middle. But you're encouraged to take an fs.fs as your function and not refer to the globals. So that's kind of how they're getting around it a little bit too.
So what Mark is saying is there are two different types. There's the embed.fs, which is specifically used for embedding these groups of files. And now there's a new type called an io/fs.fs. And that is an interface that lets multiple different types implement being a file system. So embed.fs implements this interface, but also ZipReader does. And also memfs does. And they're working on making it so the tar text. So if you ever are on the Go playground and you know how there can be multiple files in there, that format is called texttar. That format, they're making an fs.fs implementation for it. So just any different kind of format where you have a bunch of files together, you can make an implementation of fs.fs. And if your function or method takes an fs.fs, that can be put in there. It doesn't have to be an embed FS that is hard coded into the binary. It can be anything that you swap out in real time,
including the local file system.
including the local file system, right?
There's a helper in the OS package to give you I believe it's the OS package, I believe, that gives you the kind of just underlying OS. So if you just, you're building a tool that's supposed to be looking at the underlying OS and you're taking an FS, well, you just grab that and kind of pass it along through.
So that begs the question, do you think that should be best practice if you're going to work with files in the local file system? Should we just use FS now and just use that abstraction because it's more versatile? Or
I'm planning on using it, to be perfectly honest, because it does make my testing. I write a lot of tooling that deals with the file system.
Right.
Everything from generators, transformers, reading and writing. The fact that I can just mock up my file system is wonderful.
Is that interface read-only as well, like the embed file system?
Yeah.
It is only at time, yeah.
Yeah, you can't add files to it and stuff like that, yeah. But like I said, there is a testing, in the FS testing package, there's a map FS that you can use for testing. So here's all my different files that I want.
So since this happens at build time, is there a way that you can have a situation where you can just be editing CSS files and just sort of refreshing things in order to see those updates? Or do you have to rebuild? You know what I mean? Like, is there a way to have a sort of passive mode where it will just read? Or would you just build that yourself in your particular case?
So that's where the FS concept, the fs.fs comes in, that you could have in your program, depending on how you do command line arguments and flags and environmental variables and whatever it is you do, but you could say, if this value is true, then use the embed.fs, and if it's false, then use the os.fs, and switch between those two as necessary. So that could be a really good way for development for things like Buffalo, where you want to have things refreshing as the files get changed on disk, but then when it's time to build it and ship it either to the server or to the user, you can bake it in and make sure that it's concrete.
I actually like that that's not the default behavior, because I don't often do that kind of work. And I found that with the pre-existing solutions, the third-party tools for doing this kind of thing, I would have so many problems with local file system, embedded files, generated code that's lying around. And it would be so difficult to know which files were actually being read, that I actually prefer this, that there's one way of doing it. The files are always embedded the same way, whether you're running, locally or shipping and deploying it somewhere. So I love this, but that interface is incredible as well, because now that can kind of just, go through all our libraries and the standard library as well. And it can become that common kind of point of abstraction.
And it's showing up in a lot of standard library places. Carl was talking about a bunch, but I mean, like the HTTP package understands FS, for doing serving up static files. The templates directory, a templates package, so you can parse an FS. Right. So again, those of us who maybe write code generators, being able to just parse an FS is wonderful. There's a lot there.
You can pipe them through in funny ways too. Like you could say distribute to your client a zip file, and then because the zip file can now be used as an FS, you then turn the zip file into a template file system. And so instead of like saying, here's this directory of templates and I need you to unzip it and put it in this particular place, just send them the one file that contains all of the templates they need, and they can point it at that file and everything will happen automatically.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's good, isn't it? It's good.
There's a lot of that's finally having interfaces around things like files, is wonderful. Like I said, I don't know about a lot of other Go developers, but I'm constantly working with the file system, and I'm constantly trying to take files and process them through a pipeline. First I want to convert the markdown to HTML. Then I want to run that through a Go templater. Like, all these sorts of different things or whatever it is, to be able to have interfaces so I could just kind of mutate and pass along a new version of this file down the chain. Just just wonderful.
Right.
I look
So
for cloud
one of-
providers also implementing it in your clients so that you can just use the file system that's in an S3 bucket or, as a storage.
And that's the other thing too, is you could write interfaces now for S3 that, they just look like regular files. And you can write a file system interface that talks to S3 or talks to a database, right? So you can use Postgres now as a virtual file system if you wanted to. Right? I mean, you could do all these different things. You can, like I said, you can use S3 as this virtual read-only file systems, but there's
Right.
SQLite if you're doing, say, an embedded kind of thing, too.
One of the nice features of Go has always been the I/O package. When you're a new Gopher, it can be a little bit confusing. Like, what is package I/O? What are these read and write methods? Why do I have to do them? Why can't I just use like a string? But when you get to understand them, how they work is basically an I/O reader is a read-only file, and an I/O writer is a write-only file. And it lets you abstract away what exactly the file is. Is the file on disk? Is the file an HTTP response that you're reading? Is the file an S3 bucket somewhere that you're reading from? And so Go has always had a way of abstracting away an individual file using package I/O. But now with package I/O FS, you can abstract away a file system. And so it's not just the one file that you're looking at anymore, because you could always say, I'm getting this I/O reader from S3, or I'm getting this I/O reader from a zip file
I/O
or whatever.
readers don't
but now
have
you can have
file
a whole
sizes,
system, right?
They don't have
Right.
mod times. They don't have any of those things.
Right. So they don't have the properties of an actual file in terms of being a file on disk. They don't have a
Right.
name. They don't have permissions. Right. And so now we
Exactly.
can mock out all of those things.
Yeah, and that's just super exciting to me. But I like to do terrible, awful things with code.
I've seen some of it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, this is what's going to be abstracted next. All the things. It's actually time, if you check your timepieces, for Unpopular Opinions. Sometimes we have a theme tune play.
I actually think you should probably leave.
Hey, so who's got an unpopular opinion for us today? Carl, what do you think?
So this is not really a Go opinion. This is more of kind of a global open source software opinion I have, which is that there should be some sort of system for government funding of open source software. So if you think about science, in America, we have the National Science Foundation, we have the National Institutes of Health. For art, we have the National Endowment of the Arts, and we have the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. So we have these different streams for funding. But in terms of open source software, right now, there's basically just two ways to do it. One is what Go does, which is that there's a corporate sponsor, in this case, Google, who is putting a lot of money and time into these features. So Go Embed, Russ Cox did most of the actual development work on it. I mean, if you just think about what his time costs, this feature probably cost Google somewhere in the ballpark of like $10,000, $50,000, right? Like just adding up how much time their engineers have put onto it. And that's not counting all the people who contributed to the issues. If you added up all that time, it would be even more expensive. So there's nothing really. And then the other way that we fund software is through kind of the Patreon model. So there are a couple different projects that are funded that way. Like the Zig programming language, where somebody will either go on Twitch or do something so that people are interested in seeing what they're doing, and then you give them money to keep them as individuals developing. But there's no real government funding of open source software. And I think it's something that really would be helpful. The pushback that I've gotten on this opinion is like, you're saying that the government should pay the left pad guy. And I think that's a fair criticism, but I don't think that that would really happen in practice. Because if you look at how science is funded, usually the government will put together some sort of grant, and the grant will say something like, can you research how to cure the coronavirus? And then you go to that grant committee and you say, I have these scientists working in my team. We have this theory about how we could build a vaccine. We've done these vaccines in the past that show that we're qualified to do this. And they evaluate your grant proposal and give it a score. And the proposals that score highest get the actual money. So in this case, there would be something like some sort of board of software funding where people would look at, oh, Go is a popular programming language. It has, millions of developers worldwide, and they all say that they would be really excited to use this embed feature. So why don't we give, $10,000, $50,000 to this developer and then get some number of months of his or her time, and they can work on the feature so that everyone else can benefit. So I think something like that, I don't see it happening anytime soon. That's why I'm putting it in Unpopular Opinions. It seems like everybody wants to cut government funding instead of increasing government funding. But I think it would really be helpful just to have like this third stream of ways that you could fund open source software and prevent, developers from getting burned out, or the situation where the corporation changes its mind about what it wants to work on and it walks away.
Yeah, very interesting. Corey in Slack made the point, which is even the government systems themselves are using a lot of open source software. And so, they even would directly benefit. So
I used to work with former guest of the show, Paul Smith, at the ad hoc team. And they're great. They do as much as they can in open source. Anything that they can get permission from the government to make open source, basically they do. But I think that's just one angle of things, which is the angle of when the government builds its own software and there's no reason to keep it secret, they should probably open source it. But then there's another angle, which is for software that isn't necessarily useful to the government, there should be some way for the open source maintainers to be able to earn a living with it.
Yeah, very interesting. We will put this to the public on Twitter polls, which is GoTime's flavor of democracy. And we'll find out if that is indeed popular or unpopular, but it's a good one.
I have a potentially unpopular opinion.
Okay.
And it is that we should strive to use as few mocks as possible, and the amount of mocks should decrease over time. This isn't Go specific, it's just programming in general. And I actually used the philosophy that I heard from a band member once, and he said, you should practice how you're going to play. So, if you practice at home and you've got your headphones on and your amp is on 2% volume, and then you're expected to walk onto stage, turn the amp up to 110%, and all of a sudden those skills transfer, that doesn't happen. So I think in software, if you're going to run your code against MySQL, then test your code against MySQL. There are obviously limitations. If you talk about billing, you don't want to start billing charging your own credit card or something like that. Right. But often, those kinds of services will give you emulators that you can run locally, things like that. And I find that it's actually been incredibly helpful for me over time, because I got to the point where one of the services I've been working on for the past year, I actually haven't run it locally in a year. I've only run the tests ever. So someone asked me, how, go run main.go, what environment variables do I have to set? And I said, I don't know. You just, you go write a test and you run the test, and that's how you know it's going to work.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I do like that point. We will test that one too.
I never mock my database calls.
Right, you always use a real database.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, how do you consider fs.fs? Is that a mock or is that an interface? Like if in production you're using the embed fs, but in development you're using the os.fs, do you consider that a mock, or do you consider that something different?
It's an implementation of an interface. Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
What is the mock? It's what Matt does to Mark the whole episode long.
Yeah, and vice versa.
Oh, is that what you've been doing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you're off your meds again.
Mark, you look like you've been shipwrecked. So I don't think you should you should be throwing any stones.
No, I really shouldn't.
Was it to try and attract a nearby plane?
My family has locked me down here in this bunker.
It's not a bad place to be locked in, to be fair.
It's not a bad place to be locked in, but I only get flat food slid under the door like pizzas and pancakes.
Or flat sandwiches.
Flat sandwiches.
Roberto-
I can't get club sandwiches though, because then the whole top of it just gets lobbed right off.
Just get it in layers and you just build it up yourself.
I like paninis because you can get them really flat.
Yeah.
Lot there. I have an unpopular opinion.
Okay, before we do though, just want to say Roberto Clapis made this point, to your point, Wayne, that if you have code that uses random numbers, then your tests should also use random numbers. It's kind of common for us to want to control the seed in test code so that you have predictable tests, but in a way that stops it being like the real world a little bit, and actually it'd be better off if you were using random numbers. So that's an interesting point that extends to your point, Wayne. Yeah, if you've got nothing to say about that, then you're looking to Mark's unpopular opinion. Right?
Mine just popped into my head when we were talking about sandwiches. I know, right? I don't particularly care for bacon.
Oh,
Off the
I
internet.
think it's highly overrated, to be perfectly honest.
right.
Very unpopular.
It's a wildly unpopular opinion. I get that.
What would you rather eat?
I would rather have sausages instead of bacon with like my eggs.
Right. That's fair enough. Well, there's different types of bacon, isn't there? Because in England, the bacon is very different to. I've had it in the US.
It is. Yeah. I don't care for either.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I'm just against any kind of bacon.
If you like really floppy bacon, you want to get yourself to London because they've got the floppiest bacon in town. I mean, in the world. So if floppy bacon's your thing. Yeah, it's actually an American friend of mine ordered a cocktail, and I guess in New York this would be the normal thing. They asked for bacon in the cocktail, which if you imagine in New York in a cool place with American style bacon that's like firm and sticks up,
A big piece of the British bacon
Floppy-
just flopping out the side.
That's honestly, it's horrific. It gave me
Yeah.
do it, but
The appeal of that is not nearly as nice. But yeah, there you go. That's my unpopular opinion.
well, we'll see how unpopular that is. Probably not that unpopular with the vegans, but maybe with the carnivore listeners of ours.
Yeah, I think so. I do like plenty of other meats though. So
Well, yeah. Maybe we should save this for another episode. Because
I think so. Or Mark just lists his favorite meats.
favorite kinds of black meat. We only have really like charcuterie is fine. Put that under the door, but yeah, a juicy ribeye, no chance.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else got anything mental to add? Not mental, shouldn't have said that. Anyone else got anything crazy to add? No.
No.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time, but we could just save a few minutes for some light chat. Carl,
Nothing says light chat like telling everybody we're about to have a light chat.
And go.
Go.
light chat section. Yeah. Carl, you've got a blog, haven't you? Because I read about how to use Go Embed on your blog. What's the internet resource indicator for the uniform resource indicator for your blog?
Blog.carlmjohnson.net. That's M as in Matthew.
Right. Is that what your middle name is?
Oh, and Carl with a C. It is.
Good name.
Finally.
Yeah, good name. Wayne, your middle name's Ashley, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Do you go by Wayne Ashley Berry or just Wayne Berry?
I do. I like using my full name. I don't know why. I just, it was given to me. So why not?
Yeah. Yeah, I went to school with a kid called Ashley Berry. So that's really jarred in my head. He was an absolute idiot. He tried to set fire to my trousers.
Oh dear.
Do one of you three know the most popular Carl Johnson off the top of your heads?
Is it in The Simpsons?
That's close.
No, then.
It is CJ from Grand Theft Auto 3 San Andreas.
That's his real full name, is it?
His name is Carl Johnson. So if you search for my name without the M, you get pictures of Carl Johnson, posing in front of cars in very low polygon resolution.
What's
that's not
funny
you.
is if you search Mark Bates, you get the same thing, except
Yes.
me posing in front of cars
Yes,
in incredibly low resolution.
with a tank top on, and
Well, yeah, how else are you going to pose in front of a car?
goes
Yeah.
without saying.
And yet we did. Yet we did. Well, that's all the time we have for today on Go Time. But thanks for listening. And also thanks for being on it. Mr. Bates, Mark Bates, thank you very much for coming. Carl Johnson, you'll have to come back. And also you,
Thanks.
Wayne Ashley Berry, please also come back another time. It's been
Whoa.
for having me.
Whoa, I'm sorry.
What?
They got come back anytime.
Oh, you noticed. You noticed that.
You just kind of like waved me off. You're
I
like,
know.
thanks for coming, Mark. Bye.
I think it was the bacon comment that did that.
Yeah. Well, no, Matt's a vegan, so he's going to be on board with that one.
Oh no. Don't
Well,
tell-
there's the fake bacon. Do you like fake bacon or no?
I don't know why we're spending all this science energy trying to make fake meat. So no, I don't. I mean, no, I don't
The
get
times when I've tried vegan diets, that has mostly been my experience, is that like all the fake meat is not worth it. But I do think that some of the fake bacon is okay.
it. To be fair, there are now burgers that are very good, Impossible Burgers, and there's another one I forget that are just as I remember eating burgers, and they're actually terrible for you as well. So, bonus.
You've got the whole thing.
Win-win.
Yeah,
All of the health benefits of a burger with none of the taste.
it's actually worse for you. Less healthy than it's better for the animal, you could say.
Well, but they
Yeah,
make
but-
up for it by setting a oil refinery on fire every time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it tastes like. Actually,
It's like a carbon offset,
Matt
but
has
in
to
reverse.
drive 200 miles just to get one. So
it's carbon onset.
Oh, it's a carbon onset. Yes.
yeah, Matt wakes up every day. How much more carbon can I bring into the universe today? And the answer is none, because it already all exists.
Oh, well, yeah. Does it? No, you can create carbon, can you? Inside stars is where things are made.
Well, let's call Neil deGrasse
that's a
Tyson.
different
Get him
podcast.
on Go Time next week, and let's solve this thing.
Yeah, he won't come on. He refuses to because he's a JavaScript guy. So he
I
won't-
thought it was because of what happened the last time he was on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Talking about black
That-
holes.
That really was embarrassing.
Okay, well, if that's not baffling enough, join us next time. I'm sure we'll be able to equal that or make it worse. Thank you very much. See you next time.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye.
It's all right.
Whose frame?
You don't have to. Yeah, don't play the theme, closing theme tune. No. Mario. That's it. We did a podcast. We're still on YouTube, remember, I think. Jared, are we still on YouTube?
It still
They are.
says
They
custom
haven't-
live streaming on the window.
They
Have a
haven't
little
kicked us
after
out
party.
yet.
Yeah. It's always nice.
I didn't. I was wondering if that show was gonna end, and you guys, Matt's like, let's start talking about fake bacon for 10 minutes to close it out. Really.
I like the insistence on the light chat, which you then summarily just okay, we are now done with light chat. Goodbye, everyone.
He just likes to make it easy on the editors.
Yeah, just do the demarcations for them.
That's right.
Well,
I just
Jared,
wait. Yeah, I'll just cut that entire last section out, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
That's just for our live listeners.
save it for the vinyl.
There you go.
There we go.
Matt's outtakes.
I still think that's a great idea.
I do it. I do. I would actually have that. I'd love that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would want a special go time vinyl episode.
A lot is a strong word.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, after our free copies, then I guess we're really pushing the envelope of who'd want one.
Sounds like the one you forgot was Beyond Meat.
That was it.
Yes.
Ian
Gonna
in the
write you a
chat
letter. They
mentioned it.
sued Oprah. I mean, who knows what they'll do to us?
Did they sue Oprah?
What'd she do wrong?
She got sued by the National Beef Association when she had like some show saying that beef was bad and she wasn't going to eat it anymore. And then she was sued for defamation and had to apologize.
Beef? What's their beef? They're like, we've got beef. We know. No, we've got beef. Oh, I thought you should use more professional language in court proceedings.
Big Beef has a beef.
Big beef.
It must have worked if she settled. I
Rude
mean,
thing to say about opera, Mark.
Well, it probably took longer, and the settlement was more because they wasted, months just talking about where's the beef and so
Right.
forth.
Yeah, exactly.
it's what's for dinner.
It's bad for you though, isn't it? That's science.
Yeah, but it's really good.
Yeah.
So tasty.
It tastes so
You have to
good.
go on a show and like frisbee steaks out to everyone. You get a steak and you get a steak.
You could,
Steak for you.
Underneath everyone's seat.
There's just raw meat that's just been sitting there
a
for
whole
hours in
hamburger.
the studio lights. Just
Oh wow.
yeah. This is
you
great.
can
This
find a
content
scientist to
won't be
tell
on
you
the air
anything.
for some reason. I don't understand why.
cool, guys. Good show. Everybody can stop their local recordings.
Mm-hmm. And upload them.
We still are on YouTube, assuming they haven't censored us for our beef commentary, our big beef.
Yeah, Big Beef will be after us.
If you disagree with Big Beef, you're off the air.
You gotta watch out.
Yeah. Does anyone think of any other beef puns? If you get
No,
any
but the college I went to, my undergrad in Liverpool, was the cafeteria was vegetarian only. They didn't serve any.
was that
meat.
something to do with Paul McCartney?
Yeah, it was Linda's insistence because they were big veggie geeks.
Vegetarian.
So we had like spaghetti with wheat balls.
Were they like big donors to the college? Or?
Yeah, Paul started the school.
That's how you.
It's like, I'll start a school, but you're not having any meat in it,
Yeah,
That's how you get your way.
Pretty much exactly how that went down.
How do we send you the file? What's the best
Oh
way?
yes, I'll throw a link to you in the chat
link.
room there.
You don't want
Okay.
to publicize it because you never know what these
Who will upload?
That's right. We'll get DDoSed via distributed
Oh,
uploads.
I was gonna tweet the upload actually. Hang on.
have loads of beef propaganda if we're not careful. From Big Beef supporters. Or
I
are there
like
like
big.
conspiracy theorists that don't believe in beef, that don't think beef is real, or something like that? Probably.
I can't believe I'm not recording all this beef commentary.
You now entered beef time.
Yeah.
It's
Beef party. That's your
it
new
starts
show.
promptly after go time. It's beef time, and then we're gonna
That's our
have
next, yeah. Hosted by a vegan. That's what's always nice too.
and it's giraffe time. We're gonna talk about giraffes for 10 or 15 minutes after this, so stay tuned.
My dad was talking about beef, and he accidentally said beef, like with a th sound at the end. So now in our house, and ever since that moment, it was called beef, and so I have to now consciously not say beef because I sound like an idiot.
Just because once. I
It's
mean,
not,
Matt,
Matt, don't worry. It's not just that word that makes you sound like an idiot.
you guys are harsh. I mean, one time the guy says beef, and then for the rest of his life,
Yeah, it's beef.
He fed and clothed you. He raised you like one of his own. And this is how you repay him?
I was one of his own. I didn't ask to be alive. Not to look after me. It's the law. It's the law for a reason.
we could make arrangements.
Yeah. It's all right now. I'm self-sufficient. So it's fine. He's happy with
I think you'd crumble without Lori if you asked me.
Oh, yeah.
You are not self-sufficient.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've
It's a-
got food delivery on my phone.
Oh, then you'll be fine.
My phone now is how I get food. It's how I pay for things. It's how I look at trees. Like if I lose my phone, I'm done for. I don't
How you look at trees? Do you take pictures of them and then
No,
stick
just
your
lots
phone?
of captures. Tons of captures.
There's nothing more human than identifying what is or is not a motorcycle in a picture. It really is what binds us together
Yeah,
as a species.
some comedians got to think about that. It's it's like it's the most robotic thing to do. It's like you want me to identify
could do-
pictures of motorcycles.
Prove
like-
you're human.
That
Break
sounds like
into
a
our
thing a
headquarters,
computer would
destroy
be
the computer
really
that's
good
asking
at.
you about the.
Yeah, it's a task a computer would be excellent at.
What would be a better question then? Like, tell us a poem, or I mean, what can humans
Tell
do?
us about the time you were really hurt.
Yeah.
There is a reverse.
Tell us about your great-
captures.
Yeah.
Years.
What do you think about the color purple? Or
The
something?
reverse
Like you-
captures kind of interesting. I like that one.
It tells you what they are.
No, or like it's actually it's hidden.
Only a computer can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a computer, like a robot, would see the HTML.
Yeah, it doesn't
and
work.
check the box or whatever.
It doesn't work.
I've tried doing that and it's never worked on
No,
my.
they get
on my
around that
website.
real easily.
Yeah.
I have like a hidden form that says check this if you're a robot. and
There's
then check
there's
it.
some implementations of it that are really, really not bad.
Not
Yeah.
anymore. I've done them all. I've tried so
them
hard
all,
not to have
yeah.
a CAPTCHA. I've tried
Oh, yeah.
everything. In fact, they even click email confirmations now. I mean, spammers are relentless. They will get an email account and they will click on the confirmation link, and they'll still be a freaking robot.
Bugs me. I gave a load of money to a Nigerian prince whose mission was to stop spammers.
Of course.
I haven't heard back, but hopefully that's going well.
Working-
On the capture thing. Sorry, on the capture thing. What would happen if RoboCop clicked it? Because he's kind of half robot, half man.
I think somebody made that as a web comic. It's like he's sweating. You can't decide.
Not sure.
Like, dang, they're on to me. Yeah, what do I do?
Oh, it's not original then. Edit.
It might not have been RoboCop, but yeah, working at a news organization, like the people who sign my checks are the Philadelphia Inquirer, so I get like the comments, some of them sent to my email, and people who send comments are just so crazy. Who send things to the newspaper? There's something like for the last couple of weeks we've been getting this like crazy guy who's talking about cancer and how it's so nuts.
Sounds poorly. What's he saying about it?
Let me find one.
Cancer is bad.
No, he's
Then it's flat.
Have anything to do with 5G?
Cancer.
yes, it has everything to do with 5G.
I knew it.
5G. Even if it gives you cancer, we're talking like 4K Netflix wherever you want to be. Come on.
It's really fast. I've got
Plus,
it on
it
my
doesn't-
phone. It's amazing.
Oh, I've got 5G. It's the same as 4G where I live. There's no difference.
Oh, here I've got a significant boost.
What do you
Oh,
get?
yeah.
Cancer and deaths and damnation to all Democrats and Republicans who voted for Joe Biden, and curses and death to all Democrats who voted for Joe Biden with cancers and death. Curses and damnations to all it goes on like this for a while.
Nice.
That sounds like
Sounds
a robot.
programmatic to me.
Lebanon massacre and some other killings like Molly Tibbetts are happening because of past injustices, because of your Democrat traitors. Da, 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 da. Anyway, lots
That would
of
definitely fail a capture.
Light chat section we've ever had.
Yes.
it's very light. It's so light. Well, I think
Can
like
we go back to the ham and the beef comments? Can we talk?
How do you not like bacon? I mean, come on.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's just I'm like I don't
It's
see.
breed weird for that, and I don't eat it at all.
Right.
Marks
But if
off.
you did eat meat, you probably would eat bacon, right?
I mean, I don't not eat it. I just don't. I'm never like. Oh,
That's why it's not going to be an actual unpopular opinion, because you had to go way harder on it. You had to say like bacon's terrible. Then you would have gone unpopular. But that's kind of like, it's okay. It's not the best.
Well,
People
like I don't order it, and I
people aren't gonna
actively.
get worked up
if
about
people
that.
ask me if I want it, I actively refuse it.
Don't eat it unless you love it, mate. That would be my advice.
Okay, this one is pretty good. This is from the morning of the insurrection. So this is at 12:13 p.m. January 6th. A eulogy. America (parentheses she, her, hers). America, the land of the free, was a caring and prosperous country to all. She left this world suddenly on January 6th, 2021, age 244. She was born. Da 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 da. Funeral service have been canceled indefinitely due to COVID-19 pandemic. A woman.
Oh, that's
So
really
of like
upbeat.
the crazy comments, I felt like
Delightful.
that was like the one where it was like they delivered the jokes. Like they got in like a couple good zings.
Yeah, you don't mind that, do you? Then
Yeah.
Yeah,
kind
because
of flat earther if they do it with a wink and a smile, and then just
They
some
got
real
they got
effort,
some
you
good
know?
ones in there. Yeah, no, that's what I really look for in the comments to the newspaper are like, what are the ones where they're like crazy but they're working?
yeah,
I like the hustle.
yeah,
the effort. Well, kids, I think I need to drop off.
Yep.
same.
That time.
Good show, y'all. Everybody got that upload link. Show goes out, I would say next week, but I think we actually are like 2 in the can. So it'll be a couple of weeks, but we'll get it out there. Don't worry. We'll cut all of the things you guys said that might make you look bad, and we'll leave all the stuff that Matt said in.
So it's going to be like a 5-minute show of just Carl. It's just going to be Carl talking for
Yep.
just however long
shortest
Carl
go
has
time
talked
ever.
in this episode. Great.
That's an insult to Wayne, who shouldn't be.
It really is.
Sorry, Wayne.
It's just gonna be Carl reading those
Damn it.
emails. That'll be the whole show.
Oh, you'll have to come back. Thanks so much. You're both great, and it flew by. And you always know the good episodes when they just suddenly your time's
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
didn't
could have
get
gone
to
for
talk
another
about
hour.
like embedding SQL or embedding like other things besides web stuff, which would have been good. So maybe there could be like a part two.
Yeah, I
sometime.
mean, again, like say we just kind of talked about it as the canonical thing. It's
Yeah.
like, in my
mean, it's-
mind, like if you can embed an image, you can embed. I think I did say like SQL, like migration files and
Mhm.
stuff like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
like you can embed anything. It's wonderful.
Well, there was the thing in the doc where Giuseppe asked about other stuff, which we didn't really answer, but we also
Oh,
did
okay.
the question, so it's okay that we didn't answer the question.
Jared, I also didn't mention Giuseppe. That he.
Thanks.
So I'd send you a separate.
I'm glad I put that in there.
Well, I was going to, mate, and then Mark Bates happened, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he
I
ruins
thought-
everything.
Remember, and ruined it. I had loads of brilliant stuff planned, and it's just no point.
Well, I can throw that into the outro. So
Yes.
I'll thank Giuseppe in the outro.
Or the intro.
Either way, yeah, one of those two. We'll get her done. I just have to remember 2 weeks from now to do that. So maybe,
Right,
just make sure.
from Back to the Future, post it to the post office, and they'll redeliver it.
Okay, perfect,
We did it in the past, and
perfect. And then I'll be looping back around anyways because I
and
just
then
repeat the same day.
Marty gets it. In
I
1985.
was gonna say something real quick before we hang up, but I totally lost it. Cool.
Yeah, that's what
All
Mark
right,
Bates
y'all.
did.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Mark Bates'
Thanks,
fault.
everyone.
Totally.